great stuff this season. One of the games was one of the earlier games against the Lightning where we beat them 8-1. I mean, that was an amazing game, and you just got to see the full offensive capability of the Pens and Sidney Crosby. Also, I liked watching Chris Letang in the All-Star game. He managed to get 2 goals in the All-Star game, so that's a big deal for him. And, of course, the Winter Classic and the Heritage Classic. We're starting to get those outdoor games down in terms of formula and how they should be done, and the NHL is learning how to manage those games more appropriately.
Absolutely, and I think my favorite part of the season was the 24/7 series, really getting to take that in-depth look at how 2 of the NHL's best teams are coached and how they look through adversity. It was really interesting to see the differences between the coaching styles of Dan Bylsma and Bruce Boudreau of the Washington Capitals. Certainly more great NHL moments to come in this year's Stanley Cup playoffs, and in just a few short weeks, a new Stanley Cup champion will be crowned. All right, folks, we're going to take our final break here. When we come back, game predictions, fan emails. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and our Iceberg Hall of Fame inductee this week is Kevin Stevens. Kevin Stevens played for the Pittsburgh Penguins from 1987 to 1995. He was the left winger for Mario Lemieux in both of their Stanley Cup runs in 91 and 92. In the 91-92 NHL season, Stevens became the third person in the NHL to outscore Wayne Gretzky in the regular season, though he still finished second to points to Mario Lemieux. His 123 points that year also set a record for the most points by an American-born player and a left wing in one season. And now on the game prediction, Friday, as we've talked about, the Penguins will take on the Islanders. Partner, what are the Penguins' keys to victory in this one?
Well, I think we're going to really need to have better zone control than we had in the previous game. We're going to need to play physically without being drawn into circus-type play or brutishness. We need to have physical play that's balanced and appropriate for the game. So
absolutely. And Mario Lemieux last time called the game a sideshow, I believe.
Yeah. It especially was a sideshow. It was a circus. I mean, by the third period, you weren't really watching a hockey game anymore because most of the hockey players had already been thrown out. So, but especially puck control, zone control, pressure, and a power play goal or two would really help us out.
Absolutely. We definitely expect to see a different type of game this time. Hoping to see a different type of game, maybe not as much fighting. Sunday, the final game of the regular season, as the Penguins take on the Atlanta Thrashers in their last meeting way back in December. The Penguins defeated the Thrashers by the score of 6-3. How do you expect it to play out this time, partner?
I expect this game will probably be closer, but we should still come out ahead. The Thrashers, as much as they've been up and down, I still don't see them as a real contender for anything anytime in the near future. So I predict a Pens victory by at least a goal or two.
Absolutely. And the Thrashers, certainly a lot to watch out for there with their young scorers of Evander Kane and their goaltender, Pavlik. It's going to be a great game. All right, folks, we're going to take a fan email here that comes to us from Bill from Newcastle, who asks, is the Matt Cook suspension fair, considering that Chara got no suspension for a much more severe hit, not to mention how light Gilly's suspension was in comparison for more than one incident in which the hits were both much more severe? Is Colin Campbell taking past history into account more than he should be when deciding the recognition for these punishments? Shouldn't the suspension be based more on the crime rather than the past history of the offender? Well, this goes back to what we talked about a few weeks ago with our Iceberg analyst, Tim Stamp, and I would agree with you. The punishment should be more based on the infringement than on the past, but at the same time, I do feel that more emphasis needed to be placed on repeat offenders, and that's precisely what the league did with the Matt Cook suspension. What do you think, partner?
Well, I think you have to look at, if you're talking about the Chara and Max Pack situation, you have to look at the design of the Bell Center, which many hockey players have said it's the most unforgiving and brutal place to play in all of the NHL. So you have to look at that in comparison and realize that that was triggered by the design of the building as well, as opposed to the Matt Cook hit, which is a clear player-on-player impact, where you can see that the head's clearly targeted, that it's a charge, rather than an event which results in an injury. I think that you should still suspend possibly based on the results of a play, like if a player is injured, sort of like they do for high sticking. If you get hit in the face with a stick, regardless of the intent, it's still a penalty and possibly a game misconduct. So I think the NHL should take a look at that. And with the new concussion committee especially, they're looking more and more into things like this. As for Matt Cook, I think that his suspension was fair, if not ramped up a bit to show the credibility of Lemieux and Shiro and their commitment to getting rid of headshots in the NHL.
Absolutely. And I think what it comes down to with these two suspensions is that they're separate incidents with very different circumstances, so it's very hard to compare them. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for tuning in and spending your season with us. We look forward to bringing you more shows in the upcoming weeks with the playoffs. Craig, as always, thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week.
Thank you very much. You guys come back and listen to us again on the Iceberg. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody, and have a great night.